everybody. This is Noah again with our next video. So in our last video, we went over the workflow from uploading our images into Bridge and then setting them up with folders and getting them ready for Photoshop. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and do a little recap of that. So previously in our last video, we talked about our workflow again. And as you can see here, I did mention going out again, taking more photos in that same location. So, I have my photo archive. I have this year, 2025. It was a non-commissioned job. We did some landscape photography, and it was a landscape Saginaw MV1. So it was the landscape, then it was the job title, which is Saginaw M, and then version 1. So I went out again, took pictures at that same location, and a little bit on that same street. So I have V2 for version 2. And again, we have our documents folder, our assets, our raw files, our contact sheet, selects, PSD workflow, and our high-res output at 300 DPI in our trash can. Again, the color codes tell whether or not that folder is active. If it's gray, that means the folder is inactive and there's nothing to put in there at the moment. And if it's yellow or any color you select, that means that that folder is active and we have files in that current folder. So if we go back to our first one, as you can see, we have something in each of them except for the high res and the trash. These don't have a color on them because I have not got to them yet. But for this one, we're going to do our workflow regarding Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything set up real quick for you guys. So we already have our raw folder. We have our contact sheet that we made for this particular job. So as you can see, I took 3 more photos of that location, and I took 2 more of a different location, which happened to be on the same street. And then we selected a photo for that. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it set up for you guys and show you what that looks like when we get ready for Photoshop. So we're gonna go ahead and open that. So anytime you open a raw file, Photoshop or Bridge is gonna bring you to Camera Raw. And in Camera Raw, you can basically set up your color, your lighting, your effects, curves, all these little gadgets. This is mostly in Adobe Lightroom for those of you who use Lightroom. But Lightroom is a more extensive version of Camera Raw. So we're not going to bother this section right here because we're going to do everything from scratch to get you set up with editing your photos. So you don't have to pretty much rely on this little thing right here. We want you to know how to do everything piece by piece. So first things first is we want to make sure we're going to click down here and we're going to make sure that our camera preference has the correct settings. Now the color space I work in is Adobe RGB 1998. We have other color spaces, but whenever you take pictures, in your camera has sRGB and it has Adobe RGB in it. And this is more for printing reasons and for uploading online a little bit. We can go further into that later, but I keep mine on Adobe RGB 1998. The depth is always at 16-bit because we're going to work in our 16-bit. 16-bit gives us more colors to work with rather than working in 8-bit. The size of our file, our default, I use a Canon SD as a 20 megapixel, and we're always resolution is set to 300 DPI. We never turn on sharpen for screen because we're going to do that in Photoshop. And I always open my files in Photoshop as a smart object, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So once all this is correct and looks like this, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And that's going to open up. We're going to click Open Object. And our window is going to pop up like this. So I've actually already gone and edited this photo. sorry, but I've already gone and edit this photo, and let's see if I have it in here. So we went from, let's see what we got here. All right, so this was the finished version. We got rid of some of the lines from the cars and just did some light editing to it. I like it, but I think that for the most part, I just did a few things to it, and we're gonna go ahead and do a better one in the future. One that has a little bit more heavy editing, but I just did some basic retouching to it, and I'm gonna show you guys basically what that looks like. So when you start up, this is something I've been using for years now. I was taught this setup by an old instructor of mine. Great guy, knows Photoshop like the back of his hand, and it's just one of the most amazing things ever. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is creating this up here, and it's called Workflow. I'm going to provide this inside the description of the video so you can download it. And basically when we click this is an action file. We're going to click it. And these are all the files we're working with. We have our local adjustments, our global adjustments, which has curves, hue saturation, color balance, our dodge and burn, and our retouch layer in it. I'm gonna show you how to create this from scratch. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that real quick. All right, so in the beginning, we did learn about Adobe Bridge. And then from Adobe Bridge, we're going to learn about, we already went over Camera Raw in that video, and we did a little bit here as well. So now in the Photoshop workflow, I'm gonna show you guys some of the most important things to do. Now, whenever you're working your files, you always need to create you a global layer. Now, once you've mastered this right here, you can take advantage of it however you see fit in the future with your next set of photos. So we're gonna create a global folder, and the global folder is all of our adjustments that are inside this, that are gonna affect our image, right? So let's say we did a curves, because we're always gonna do a curve. So let's do curves. We're gonna do the hue sat, and we're gonna do a color balance. We're gonna put the curves over that, and we're going to have our hue set right there. All right, so our global folder basically has all of our main adjustments. So when we want to like mess with the lighting a little bit, or we want to mess with the color a little bit, however we see fit to doing any of that. This is basically our most important folder right here. And then from there, we are going to create a local folder, and local is going to go above the global folder. So local basically is, let's say I don't like this yellow, this orange yellow, and I want to change it to green or something. Well, if we select this, right? So let's go ahead and try to select that. We'll do that. That one's just gonna quick selection. So let's say we just selected this right here. Photoshop is being, all right. So let's say we selected this part right here, and we wanted to change the color of it. So we went to like a color balance, and we changed the color of that one side, right? If you notice, we have our color balance for that selected area, right? So for that selected area, that's the part that's being affected. If we kept this local folder underneath the global, then everything in global will affect the way our local folder is. So if we want to make adjustments outside of our global folder, we want to make sure we keep it above our global folder, and basically we can make those changes. The next thing we're going to do from there is create a dodge and burn. Now, this is the most traditional way of creating a dodge and burn layer. Sometimes you see people create 2 curves layers. They bring one up to brighten, and then they bring the other one down to darken, right? And then they invert those, and then they start and they edit with those. So, you know, they go through and they'll call this dodge, and they'll dodge whatever they want to do, and they'll do all that right there, right? Now, the most traditional way of doing it for better accuracy is we're going to create a new layer. So we're going to go down to menu, we're going to go to layer, new, and then we're going to layer. Or you can hit Command N or Shift Command N, and we're going to call this DB for dodge and burn. And I'm actually colored that gray. So we have a DB layer. Then we're going to go back to menu. We're going to go to edit, and we're going to go to fill, and we're going to make sure this is at 50% gray. Our mode is normal, and our opacity is 100%, and we're going to click OK. So automatically your screen should look just like this. Don't worry about this right here, but your screen should look just like this. Then we're going to go to our toggle bar. We're going to go from normal, and we're going to go down to overlay. So now it's hidden, and the only way this works is with our dodge and burn tool. So hit O, and if you come over here, we have dodge and we have burn and we have sponge tool. We never use sponge tool, we only use dodge and burn. So let's click the dodge tool, and we're gonna make sure the exposure is set to 10%. Ideally, we can do exposure from 3 to 5%, but I usually like to put it at 10% for a little bit of more adjustment to it. So let's say we zoom in a little bit. We have our dodge open, and we're just going to dodge over here. We're going to lighten this up just a bit. Right? So let's turn this off and on. As you can see, it was a little bit dark, and we brightened it a little bit. This is the most traditional way of dodging and burning. If you ever look at some of those videos where high-end fashion photographers or product photographers use dodge and burn to make their models look amazing or so, most of them use a curves layer, but the way to do it is using the way I just showed you, creating that layer, filling it with 50% gray, and using the dodge and burn tool, right? Below that, we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to call it retouch. This is our retouch layer, and in that retouch layer, we're going to retouch, let's say, we're going to retouch this red line. And you're going to use either S for the stamp tool, or you can use J for the spot healing brush, the remove tool, the healing brush tool, the patch tool, any one of those. But normally we use the spot healing tool on the clone stamp. So spot healing tool or clone stamp, yeah. You're gonna hit Option, click the area you wanna hit, make sure this is at current and below, and we're gonna get rid of that line right there. So notice how this layer is above our main photo. That means everything on this layer and below it is being affected. Our dodge and burn won't be affected. Our global won't be affected. and our local won't be affected at all. So this is basically my Photoshop workflow. This is how I start every single photo. I always have me a local adjustments folder, a global adjustments folder, a dodge and burn layer, and a retouch layer. Something that I normally do for landscape is, let's go ahead and let's delete all this right here. So before I do landscape, most of the time, I'll go up to image, I'll go to canvas, and let's expand that from 20, and let's expand that to like 15, and we'll hit OK, right? We'll create a layer, we'll drag it underneath, and we are going to paint it white. So this is sometimes how people create borders for their photos when they upload them online. But the reason I'm doing this is because if you look up here, I have my ruler set up. So as you can see, our photo is a little bit slanted upward on the right side. So this right here gives me an opportunity to use some of those lines to make sure that everything looks straight. I'm sorry, the left side is a little bit slanted down. So the right side is all right, but the left side needs to go up a little bit. So then we'll go up to image, edit, and let's say skew. And then we can edit that as much as possible, get that situated pretty well. Go in detail. This one doesn't need that much, but normally before I do any of those, I'll do this right here. I'll set up my file, make sure the lines are perfect, make sure everything is straight. Once I'm done, we'll get rid of all that right there. And then I can go ahead and I can do my workflow. And then once I have my workflow, I can just start working. So let's say we've been editing and we're completely done, right? What we're gonna do is we're gonna flatten all this. So I click up here, I click Shift and I click the bottom, and then I hit Command E. Or you can go up here. Let's see, it's Layer, Flatten. And then this is the perfect time for you to crop. So we're gonna crop our photo, and I usually keep mine at this right here. So I keep the resolution at 300. And let's say I wanna crop it about here to here. I usually delete the crop pixel, so as everything in the background will be deleted. So when we save it, none of that information will exist. We're gonna hit the check mark. This is our photo now. So it's cropped. And then we're gonna go to image. We're gonna go to size. Now we're gonna stay at 300 resolution, or let's say you're putting it on Instagram and you wanna do it at 150 resolution. You can do that as 2, or if you're giving it to a client, you can do 72, which is pretty small, but I keep everything mostly at 300. On the long side, I usually do 9, or I'll do 12, or I could do 6, but we're gonna do 9 on the long side. The height would be 4 inches. We keep it at the cubic smooth gradients, and we're hit OK. So this is our image size. This is it at 100%. Then we're going to drag this. We're going to create another one, or you can hit Command J. We're going to turn this into a smart object. Let's see, convert to smart object. And we're gonna go up here and hit filter. And we're gonna sharpen it. So we do the sharpen. And right now this is at 100%. We can double check that. Let's see, all right. So right now it's at 100%. Depending on what it is, you can change that. But at 100%, you see how sharp that looks? Now we can hit okay, and we look good. Now, earlier I said I opened my files as a smart object. And the reason I open my files as a smart object is because we can create filters on our image without affecting the image directly. There's like a link to it. So you see this link right here, we can right click that and we can delete that filter, right? We can delete every single one of them, clear smart filters, and now our image is back to normal. So that's most of the reasons why I create a smart object, is because I want to sometimes create filters on my image without actually directly affecting the image. So I can go here, because this is right here, this is a layer mask. I can invert that one, hit Command I, and I can go through and I can brush in where I want it to be sharp. How do we see that? We can click Option and click that. And as you can see right there where I brushed it in, or we can hit Command and click our mask, and you can see where I brushed it in. So that right there is basically where I have the sharpness pulled up. Let's see. I usually like to keep this white. So let's bring that all the way down. And we're hit. Okay, so now we hit Q. And let's see, let's do 100%. I'm gonna do 100%. All right, so easiest way for me to do that. And then when I brush, I'm taking away, or I can add. So then I hit Q again, and I'm adding more to it. But we're gonna go ahead and we're going to delete that. And we're gonna reverse that. So now it's on the entire image. And I'm gonna hit Command E to flatten that. And then I'm going to export this. I always save for web, or I can choose a different option. But since this is going online, I'm gonna hit Save for Web. Our window's gonna pop up. And we're gonna do JPEG. Quality is at 60, and we're gonna change it to 100. This is what it looks like optimized, but we're gonna have it on original. I never check progressive. So progressive is basically when you put the image online and it takes a minute for your image to show up. It's because your image is loading onto the server rather than just showing up. Optimize, embed color profile. This is good for when you put it online, because the colors are gonna change. And we can preview in whichever monitor. So this is my Macintosh, internet standard, user profile, monitor color. I keep my copyright on there, so we're gonna keep copyright contact, all except camera info. We're gonna keep all of that in there. So when somebody goes looking for our image, they know where it's at. All right, so I'm gonna cancel this because we already have it saved. And we're gonna come back here. Now that I have it inside my folder at 300 DPI, I'm gonna change that to yellow. So that lets me know there is something in there. And it's our image right here. So again, let's go over that one more time, just in case I went too fast for everybody. So inside of our Photoshop, we work in basically our basic setup to begin editing. I'm going to put this again inside the video so you can download it. It is an action file. There is a folder that tells you how to install actions. So you're going to click action, you're going to click the workflow folder, and this creates all of your folders. This creates your local adjustments, your global, your dodge and burn, and your retouching. So again, local is basically if you want to isolate a particular thing in your photo and you create a layer mask for that particular item, it will go up here so it doesn't be affected by the global. Global will basically be all your adjustments to your image, and you can also do, like, you don't have to do just these three, but I always keep the curves above because I want to make sure that the lighting is more dominant than anything else. But you can throw anything else in there. We can do exposure. We can do another color balance. You can throw whatever you want in there. Dodge and burn is basically where we're going to come to isolate particular areas, where we're going to lighten it or we're going to darken it. And then our retouch. Retouch is, as it sounds, this is where we come in and we're retouching those particular layers that we don't want. So let's get rid of this line. Boom. Everything is inside this retouch layer. And then we have our background. So that's it for right now. I'll come out with another video on some more useful tips. If you have any questions, if this video in some way confuses you, please leave a comment in the comment section. Ask questions. You know, if there's ways to improve these videos for the future, let me know, as well, as this is my first time getting into the video, and it's quite fun, but I can use all the help and guidance from you guys. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.